Welcome to Soundbite, the podcast where we talk to interesting people in the Maritimes about their stories, specialties, and insights. I'm Caitlin Dutt, one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Tim Porter.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Caitlin. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, we've got an interesting show. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things today. I think maybe we're talking about movies. Are we? Is that what we're starting with?
Yeah, I guess we're starting with movies. I have had a busy movie week.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, you go to the scary ones, right?
Well, I'm actually not much of a horror movie person, but a lot of horror movies lately have had such high ratings that I feel like I've been forced to watch them because everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is the best movie of the year. You need to see it.
There's a couple of big ones out right now, right?
Yeah, so I watched Obsession and I watched Backrooms.
Okay, I've heard about Backrooms. Yeah, apparently that's quite a thing.
Yeah, so Backrooms is actually built off of all of this YouTube lore. I think it's originally based off of something called like a creepypasta, which is kind of like an internet story.
Yeah, some YouTube guy did it, right?
Yeah, and some YouTube guy adapted that. And then from that, the YouTube guy who was doing the original adaptations actually became the director of this movie.
Right.
And this guy is only like, I think he's 20, which is super impressive to be doing directorial debut on something that's making a whole lot of money at the theaters. It's actually the top performing A24 movie.
Really? Yeah.
Which is crazy. But it was really good.
Maybe I'll check it out. I saw the one with the space alien that's the Rock, and he goes out into space and makes friends with this rock.
Yeah, Project Hail Mary. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. But if you're looking for like, I'd say Obsession is definitely the more like horror one. So if you're looking for more traditional horror with kind of the spooky, kind of a little bit of possession elements in there, but if you want kind of a creepy sort of like you don't know where you are, it's just a big wide room. If you're ever scared of being in the office by yourself after hours, Backrooms is a good movie for you.
And of course the Spielberg movie's coming out soon, and the Nolan movie about the Odyssey is
I'm excited about that one.
So there's a lot of big movies out there. So let's introduce our guests.
Yes.
We have Neil McKenna from in Saint John, who works with us in the public relations game. Hi, Neil.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Brian Cormier from Moncton, who we haven't talked to before. But Brian's a communications professional, a writer. I've known Brian since the late 90s.
Okay.
And I know Brian has a lot of eclectic tastes. He might be able to tell us what, the latest deal at Costco is.
Deal at Costco.
I don't know if he knows something about coloring books. I don't know. So hi, Brian. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the news and what might be happening around the province.
It's been a busy week in terms of news. My goodness.
Yeah. Here in Fredericton, we had the farmers surrounding the legislature this week with their tractors and...
Yes, I heard that. I was actually driving by and I saw there were some inflatable cow suits also walking through, which I thought was a very creative protest, actually, because although I didn't really realize what they were protesting at the time, my attention was definitely like over there as I was driving.
So, Brian, interestingly enough, our friend that you went to Kings with, Chisholm Pothier, I saw him write a message on that because sometimes he weighs in on things. And Chisholm was talking about the fact that he mentioned about consultation, and maybe it's a case where the government didn't consult with farmers enough on the changes, particularly, I guess, as it relates to
provincial veterinary services,
the
right?
vet service, and then it's the lab service too that seems to be kind of the kernel there.
Right.
So, what's your take, Brian? Do you see anything similar to that?
Well, I think people seem to be taken by surprise. So maybe there is a lack of consultation there. I know that a lot of the times in government, when they say there's a lack of consultation, there was some consultation, but maybe they just didn't like what they were hearing. But in this case, I don't know. With that said, the protests seem to be sticking. I'm hearing that from a lot of people, and it relies a lot on the lab services, but also on, people feel terrible for these animals. When an animal is sick, they want them to be cared for and quickly. And it can affect food safety as well, obviously. So the protests seem to be sticking. I don't know. I'm told, I've talked to various people in government about this, just saying, oh boy, you guys are, oh, this is bad. And apparently it's going to happen. So they're sticking with this come hell or high water. I keep hearing too that we're the only province or one of the only provinces with a provincial vet system. And if other provinces can do it, I can't see why we can't either. However, that's me. I don't own a farm, so it's easy for me to say. So obviously people are afraid for their animals, and and good for them. They're concerned, and they need to be comforted, obviously.
Yeah, it seems to be an issue of transition in terms of if we're moving to a new model, then maybe there's a little more time needed to get to that model. Because, as you say, other provinces do it more in the private sector. So it probably takes some time to change that over and make sure that services aren't torn up from people.
Yeah. Well, one interesting thing in this is that former Premier David Alward, who is a cattle farmer, I believe, he's quite involved in this.
Yes, I've
and
seen
he so that is a little different. You don't normally get former premiers spearheading protests, and in this case, it's quite unique and could be more effective than past ones.
I've seen his Facebook posts, and
I have
he had a video out this morning.
Yeah.
And that's actually the video that Chisholm commented on that I noted. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, Brian, as we talk about Moncton is, of course, we had the passing of Mr. Irving within the last week or two.
Right.
And and there's a big change over there in terms of. Well, I see his son is going to take over the Wildcats, and so what do you think that generational change is going to mean for Moncton?
Well, I think everyone, the first thing I went to is Mr. Irving was so generous with people. I mean, I thought I knew of his generosity, having served on a few boards of directors here and there, and he was always, when we were doing a fundraising campaign, it was like, oh, if you can get Robert Irving to co-chair it, well, we'll be fine. And I'm sure he was asked a million times to co-chair campaigns. So the generosity after he passed away just became more to light than it ever was, because they weren't necessarily public about all this stuff. So just the outpouring of just sympathy and compassion and everything for him was really very, I wasn't surprised, but I was just amazed at the volume of it and the sincerity of it from all walks of life. And so his son certainly learned from the best and certainly has some big shoes to fill. And one of the other concerns, it was a bit of a worry. I said, well, boy, what's going to happen with the Moncton Wildcats? And that seems to have been resolved with his son, will be taking ownership of that. So it'll just be, I guess, every time there's a change in generations, there's a change in style sometimes or not. So time will tell, but I think there's a lot of hope there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he certainly was recognized as doing a lot for the development of Moncton, particularly from its economic point of view, and I guess that a life well led
And
in that regard.
And what do we know what his son was doing before
he was working there? I think with him.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and I was, too, when I was looking online at all these, I have to say, all these notice, I was waiting for the nasty ones, right? Because and it doesn't matter what you say online, someone's going to be and I saw one. I didn't. Of course, I couldn't read everything, but there was one on a local politician, and just one, and it was from someone outside in New Brunswick making a nasty throwaway comment, just because Mr. Irving was wealthy, and that's all. And they didn't know him; they knew nothing of him, and clearly, he was very generous with his fortune, as we can say, and with his time and all that sort of stuff. And everyone who met him certainly enjoyed him. Thought he was a nice man and very compassionate, down to earth. So anyone who criticized, but I just I was just amazed at the unanimity practically of the good wishes out there for him. So
the other thing, of course, we've got a new municipal government, and Moncton elected a new mayor, Sean Crossman, who had been a councillor before. What do you think's any difference in styles going to happen there in Moncton, Brian?
I think so. Full disclosure, I helped Sean a bit on his campaign, so just to put that out there. He, I think he benefited from a split in the vote, obviously. There were three, I can't remember the last time Moncton has had three well-known candidates running for mayor. It was always two, or acclamation. I think once. I think Brian Murphy was acclaimed once. So it was the first time we had three well-known people, the former mayor, an MP, and two current councillors running. Yeah. So it was just sit back and see what happened. The order of the vote ended up as I thought. I think everyone thought that Charles Legier would end up in third, but it was how that would affect the top two. And Sean Crosland came out just by a few hundred votes. It was under 300 votes, so it was very, very close. With that said, Sean grew up in municipal politics. He knows everyone. His father was the longest-serving councillor in Canadian history, I believe. His father was a former mayor of Louisville, so he grew up in it. He knows what he's doing, and he's very, very close to the people. He's very much of a populist in the good way, where he has a lot of things. Now, public safety was his number one issue, along with a lot of people, just because things have changed so much in Moncton. And I think he's really, really looking to, as we say, clean up the streets, in quotation marks.
It seems to be the number one issue in all the cities.
Well, it does. Yeah, it does. But Moncton is unique in that, and I certainly, the timing of this after yesterday's anniversary of the RCMP's, passing is not great. Right. But looking at, of whether the RCMP is the right choice for a municipal police force is another thing that we have to look at, because when the RCMP is your municipal police force, the municipal councils, in our case 3, don't necessarily have the absolute final say on where resources go, because we don't control the number of officers, we don't control a few other things. So I think there's going to be a push to go towards back to a municipal police force.
That makes sense. And Fredericton and Saint John have their own municipal police forces, so Moncton would be the only one.
And I think there are very few. I said, geez, I think there's only one or two. The RCMP normally don't do municipal policing. It's not their expertise. They're good. When I call the police, I maybe have to call them once. They're right there, and I've seen them in action. The training, the competency, the effectiveness is all there without question. However, I think it's just a matter of managing the resources. Yeah, like we want 5 new police and the budget, and Ottawa says no, kind of thing.
Right.
Well, it's not up to Ottawa. Well, when you're dealing with the RCMP, it kind of is, maybe not 100%, but it is.
Yeah.
So I know Brian writes a newsletter. I think you produce it every week, don't you, Brian?
Oh, cool.
I have for about, oh my God, 15 years, maybe 10 or 15 years. I meet all
wow.
my deadlines.
Yeah,
I'm a good journalism grad from King, so I meet my deadlines. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
He's always got all the news in there. I don't know if he's covering Scott Pelley.
I am. Yeah, it will
you?
be in. It's in one of the news items on in my newsletter coming out Sunday night. So yeah, poor 60 Minutes. My God, what a fall from grace. Oh.
So what's your take on that? So obviously, I'll just give it background for the listeners. So Scott Pelley was the anchor of the CBS News for a handful of years, and then he went on. He also a dual role with 60 Minutes.
Very
as one
famous
of their correspondents, and he's been doing that over the last little while as a kind of a correspondent in a lot of areas of the world that where there's a lot of conflict, and so he's been kind of a main force for CBS News, and of course CBS News has been going through this whole change in terms of.
Well, Barry Weiss did become the president.
So Brian, what I won't go any further, but Brian maybe can take us a little bit on that journey. What's your take on it, Brian?
Well, first, Anderson Cooper, well-known journalist of CNN, also with 60 Minutes. He resigned from 60 Minutes, so that was kind of the first, death knell. And then secondly, Scott Pelley went off apparently at a staff meeting and went ballistic, and basically, in fairness, in any workplace, he probably shouldn't have done what he did. And maybe should have done it in a closed door meeting, but he went off in a public staff meeting apparently, and he was fired. They just booted him right away. And I read the term. I saw it online, the termination letter, and they basically said, would have liked to have a chat with you in private, but you chose to do this publicly, so we have no choice but to terminate your employment. So he was fired. Now, in this day and age, being fired from the media is, you can do pretty well, especially with social media, YouTube, and all that sort of stuff.
That's
you can basically start your own network.
You can just do the TikTok Creators Fund.
I can't even remember his name right off the top of my head. Anyway, he was formerly with CNN, and he's done a lot of. He's doing a lot of stuff on YouTube right now.
I know who. Brian and I are both suffering from old age where we can't remember things very
I'll remember as soon as I hang up. I can see his face. I just can't remember his name.
I do know who you mean.
It's Don Lemon. Don Lemon. So Don is doing very well on his own now with over 1 million subscribers, and I'm sure he's not hurting for money. So.
And we're all waiting to see what Stephen Colbert does, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And the late night sphere seems to be in flux as well. So,
and that was CBS too. He was forced out of CBS. So.
I imagine he'll make his own podcast, his own YouTube show. He'll do perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, he'll do fine. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. He won't be on this corner of the street.
So a lot of people are talking about the death, especially in the States. The death of late night, the death of cable news. I guess the better. I'm not sure how else to define it. But do you think things are
evolving?
Do you think things are going down or
going down? I think things are going to hell in a handbasket. CNN is on the verge of being sold unless they stop that sell to another kind of right wing owners.
Are they under
the CNN going the way of CBS?
Are they under the Warner Brothers Paramount merger? Is that what's the potential for them?
Yeah, exactly. I think they're trying to stop it. They still, there'll be lots of things, but Donald Trump is backing all that, and he wants all his rich right-wing friends to basically buy up all the news channels and control them. They're stuck. Other than Fox News is obviously on the right, and then if CNN takes a hard right, you're left with MS Now, which is I watch that all the time when I watch American news, and it's fine to me. But
and who
is biased there too?
No. Who is MS Now owned by? Do we know that?
It was split up in a merger. It used to be involved with NBC. It's been split off, but I'm not sure who the actual owners are. It's Comcast at one point, I believe. So, yeah.
Okay.
But, there's a big push on there by right-wing media to buy up all the media and just control the narrative. And that's the problem, controlling the narrative. They're all from one area, right? So
I think
here in Canada, thankfully, we're still quite reasonably well balanced. So
I think we're just really going to see a lot more like former news folks like Stephen Colbert, or I know he's more late night, but the guys who were just talking about Anderson Cooper and all of them. I think that they'll probably go and more become creators in their own sort of sphere, because one, they can make more money that way. Two, the news outlets are going to get rid of all of the people that, like, the newscasters that people rely on, at least the more left-leaning ones. And three, like, I don't know, there's just going to be this lack of trust of these kind of overarching media empires controlling the narrative, and people just aren't going to know what to trust in terms of like what's biased and what's not anymore. It's very interesting, but I'm glad we live in Canada.
And I think Trump too is also putting his thumb on the scale, obviously, for mergers and all that sort of stuff. So that's certainly when he is gone from office, whenever that is, I think you'll see things change or slow down, or there'll be a rightening of the ship, so to speak. I hope so, but we'll see. That's up to them. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how he does in the midterms, because those are coming up in the fall, right?
Yeah, I don't think he'll do very well, but we'll see what happens. I don't know who knows? I didn't think he'd win the first time, and I didn't think he'd win the second time. So I'm certainly not a good. I'm not a good seer when it comes to those things.
Okay, well, thanks, Brian, for checking in with us, and we'll check back with you sometime.
Yeah, no problem. Love to.
Thanks soon, Brian.
Yeah,
okay.
Great chatting. Okay,
right,
take
thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so now we're going to go over to Neil in Saint John. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Caitlin.
So I understand you were at a big Saint John Chamber speech yesterday. What was that all about? I think David Campbell was speaking?
He sure was. Yes, so I was attending the 207th annual general meeting of the Saint John Region Chamber of Commerce. So they've been in business for quite a long time. And so I was there with our colleague Tyler Campbell, and we got to hear a great presentation from David Campbell, who's a well-known economist here in New Brunswick.
So what did he have to say about tariffs? Because I'm sure he had something to say.
I don't think he's a big fan, but that wasn't the main focus. It was more of a general overview of kind of where New Brunswick and Saint John in particular kind of fits in with regards to Canada's overall economy. And of course, the challenge is perhaps not a surprise, is we're a little bit behind the average, or behind the eight ball, you could say. But it's not all bad, and there are still many opportunities ahead for the city to chase and for the province to pursue.
Yeah, you seem to say that Saint John was undergoing a little bit of growth, a reasonable amount of growth, and
yes.
I mean that seemed good. He talked about some new businesses being started up there, and particularly, I guess, as in the downtown. That is thriving quite well, and
I know there's specifically when we're talking about I guess how New Brunswick fits into the national conversation. AI has of course been like part of the huge national conversation, and they're really trying to push it. So I know that there's this big data center that they're potentially looking at building in Lorneville. What was kind of the vibe of that at the chamber event?
Yeah, so we didn't really touch too much on that particular data center in directly, but I think it's one of those things where it's looked at, I think, as a pretty big opportunity amongst the business opportunity, or amongst the business community, rather, I should say.
Yeah.
And I've known that David's spoken on that particular topic before and has interviewed one of the owners of that proposal on his podcast. And it's one of those sort of big swings that we don't always see taken here in Saint John. And so it's really interesting in that sense. And as much as there's certainly some degree of controversy around it, it's a big opportunity. And I think that his message was to try and embrace some of those big opportunities and try and keep pushing forward.
And of course, there's a lot of opportunities expanding at the port of Saint John.
Very true. Yes.
Absolutely. No, the port has, it's grown like crazy in the last few years, and it's really becoming a very important part of the of Canada's like transportation network, and it's a really huge trade corridor as far as Atlantic Canada is concerned.
I see there was a StatsCan report just came out about unemployment, though, and unemployment the rate has kind of stagnated in New Brunswick, kind of.
We had like 7.5 or something like that.
Yeah, and and it's been continuing that way for a while now. I guess that's not good. I've certainly seen unemployment rates much lower in previous decades. So are they kind of going through a bit of a decline, or what do you think, Neil?
Yeah, it's funny. We tend to feel that a little bit more acutely here in Saint John, and there are even other indicators such as child poverty, where the rates are a little bit higher here in this part of the province than they might be in a place like Fredericton. It's a serious challenge, and I think it's something that sort of everyone is grappling with here in the province, maybe just a little more so on our end. And what's intriguing is that Saint John has been kind of regarded and now been confirmed as one of the most tariff exposed and most trade dependent cities in the country, like not just in the province, but across Canada. So when we have these challenges with, for example, the United States, as we currently are, we tend to feel that just a little bit more. And I think all of that's connected. And so you see unemployment being a little bit higher.
Yeah,
it causes some issues.
I saw a report came out just recently that I think Jim Irving was part of the committee that put out the report.
Yes.
Talking about the tariffs, and how we can address things in the tariff climate, I guess, is kind of the...
It's a real problem, and what's good, and the good news is that through organizations like Port Saint John, we have a great opportunity to try and really sort of shore up our own infrastructure here at home. And you see that reflected sort of in the messaging government uses, like not just for our physical infrastructure, but for example, to go back to AI and the data center, talking about securing data and keeping it on domestic soil. So, as much as there are huge challenges here, there are some great opportunities to try and sort of build a little bit more at home and keep that information, money, and data all on Canadian soil.
Okay, so we want to touch a little bit on the municipal election. Neil, you've got a new council there. The mayor, Reardon, has been re-elected. Any new, but a few new councillors. Are you any new push do you see from the municipal council?
It's really interesting, Tim, how it sort of shook out after the election results were over and the votes were counted, in the sense that we've got a new council, and it's largely new in the sense that I think only 3 of the 10 previous councillors from the last council were reelected. But amongst the new faces, there's a great deal of familiarity. And so if you look, for example, we have a new councillor, David Merrithew, over on
Ward 4.
Over on the West End, and he's been a councillor before. He wasn't a councillor in the most recent session, but he's been there before. And then you look at someone like Paul Dempsey, who ran provincially for the PC East a couple of years ago. So we've got a new council, but a lot of familiar faces around it. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic as they sort of figure out how they where they want to take the city over the next 4 years.
And Mayor Donna Reardon, she did say that, she felt that she needed to run a second time because she wanted to kind of finish what she had started in a way, and she needed like more time to do that. So what are the big things that we're looking at for the next 4 years of Saint John that she's really kind of focusing on, kind of, I guess, finishing up? Yeah.
No, I think it's going to be sort of continued economic growth, and just trying to sort of promote the city a little bit more, and really try and sort of ensure that we embrace those opportunities that have not always come down this way. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be her main focus, and she's going to continue to be sort of a relatively pragmatic, centrist type politician who will be sort of leading in that avenue for the city as we progress here.
And it's a tough it's a tough time for Saint John, because I know that, when the tariffs were, I mean, they're always in the news, the tariffs from the United States. But I remember last year there was a report that said that Saint John was going to be, I think it was the city that was most affected in Canada by tariffs.
Yep.
And so how are you guys doing a year in, looking at kind of expanding that economic development while this is still ongoing and we don't know what's happening with CUSMA and blah, blah, blah?
It's funny. It's a real challenge, and people here just feel it very acutely because they work in factories and pulp plants and ports. So there's a very on the ground impact, and it's a tough challenge for the city to try and tackle that because when those numbers are depressed or when things get tougher economically, you can feel it and you can see it on the streets, and that's a very real thing here. And obviously during the campaign, I think public safety was a big issue. So I think that the new council is going to try and continue to push forward and try and see make some changes on that. It's a really, really tough problem for any city council to solve, but I think they have a good team around the table to try and make some headway.
Yeah. Well, on CUSMA, I see Dominic LeBlanc was down in the States meeting with his counterpart, starting the formal negotiations, maybe to get a new free trade agreement with the States. So we'll see how that goes. We'll put a pin in that. Right?
I don't know if it's going to be a free trade agreement in any sense. They're like, any agreement that's an agreement will have tariffs in it. That doesn't make it a free trade agreement. That's the opposite.
We'll see how that all goes.
Yeah.
So as well, we had the resignation of David Coon.
Yes, I know.
The long goodbye.
Yeah.
He's not going away anytime soon, but he's kind of signaled.
He's looking at potentially stepping down from provincial leadership for the Green Party, which is kind of, he's been there for 12 years now as the leader, which is kind of a big deal, but, or maybe even more than 12 years, might be 14. But he says that he's still going to stay on as MLA. So there's that. He'll still be around, but that's more of a tentative because he is turning 70 very soon. So he's had a long good run of being kind of a significant Green Party effect in the legislature. Yeah.
What do you think David Coon's legacy will be?
Yeah, so I think his legacy, it comes down to, I think a solid step of growth for the Green Party.
All right, well, thanks, Neil, for checking in with us, and we'll check back with you sometime soon.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
All right. Good to talk to you. Have a good one. All right.
All right, well, I guess we're going to wrap up, Kaylin. We've pretty well talked over most of the news.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of big
points.
There's a few
things. There's a few good things going on. Like I see there's the government has announced a lunch program for students. So a lunch program for students. Mm-hmm. So that will be introduced at least in a fairly wide pilot next year.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
To go along with the breakfast program.
I think it was $4 for K-8 and then $5 for high schoolers like if you're lower income, then you don't have to pay.
Give if you can.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really nice.
Yeah, no, it's a good program. So there are a few good things going on out there in the world. So
yeah,
we'll try to stay optimistic. Otherwise, maybe we'll see you at the movies, Caitlin.
I'm gonna turn this into a movie podcast soon. Just you wait.
All right.
Yeah.
And okay, good. Well. Nice talking to you.
Okay, nice talking to you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Soundbite, a production of Porter O'Brien and CHSR 97.9 FM. Special thanks to our podcast host, CHSR, our sound editor, March Rojas Velasquez, as well as Adam Porter, who provided our theme music. You can find all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Music under Soundbite. You can also follow and support us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Soundbite Podcast.